Gemini Weekly Tarot, July 22nd to 28th, 2026. Opening. Gemini, what if the thing keeping you stuck this week is not the situation itself, but the story you have been telling yourself about it? Your card is the Eight of Swords. At first glance, this can look like a difficult card. A figure stands blindfolded and bound, surrounded by swords. The path appears blocked. The options seem limited. But look closer. The bindings are loose. The swords do not form a complete cage. And the path out exists. That changes everything. From July 22nd through July 28th, your ruling planet Mercury finally stations direct after weeks of retrograde motion. The Sun enters Leo, bringing more fire to communication and self-expression. Saturn turns retrograde in Aries, asking for a deeper review of long-term plans, communities, and the future you are building. The sky begins opening at exactly the moment the Eight of Swords asks you to notice where your mind is still behaving as though every door is closed. This week is not about forcing an escape. It is about seeing the opening that was already there. Cosmic weather. Wednesday begins with the Sun entering Leo. For Gemini, this activates a naturally compatible area of life: communication, ideas, conversations, learning, writing, movement, and the way you interact with the world immediately around you. Your voice becomes important. But before you can use that voice fully, the Eight of Swords asks you to examine what you have been afraid to say. Then Thursday brings the shift you have been waiting for. Mercury, your ruling planet, stations direct in Cancer. The retrograde may have created delays, misunderstandings, changed plans, old conversations resurfacing, or uncertainty around money and personal value. Now the direction changes. But Mercury remains in its post-retrograde shadow. That means clarity returns in stages. You do not have to solve everything on Thursday. The important difference is that you can begin working with new information instead of endlessly circling the old question. Then Sunday, Saturn stations retrograde in Aries. For Gemini, this can trigger a review of friendships, networks, communities, ambitions, and long-range plans. You may realize that a future you once imagined no longer fits exactly as it did before. That is not failure. Sometimes freedom begins when you stop forcing yourself toward a destination chosen by an earlier version of you. Card reveal. The Eight of Swords belongs to the suit most closely associated with thought, language, perception, decisions, and mental conflict. That makes this card especially significant for Gemini. You live naturally in the realm of ideas. You can see multiple possibilities where someone else sees only one. But that gift has a shadow. When every possibility is visible, every possible problem can become visible too. One thought becomes 5. 5 become 20. And eventually thinking, which normally gives you freedom, can become the thing preventing movement. The figure in the Eight of Swords cannot see clearly because she is blindfolded. But the card never tells us that someone else must arrive to remove it. That detail matters. This is not a card of permanent imprisonment. It is a card of perceived limitation. There may be a real obstacle in front of you. There may be consequences to consider. There may be uncertainty. But the Eight of Swords asks whether you have unconsciously expanded those obstacles until they occupy the entire landscape. This week, separate what is actually impossible from what merely feels uncomfortable. Those are very different things. Card meaning. The Eight of Swords represents restriction, overthinking, fear, hesitation, self-doubt, and the feeling that every available choice carries a risk. But its deeper message is perspective. You may have been waiting for certainty before making a decision. This card suggests certainty may not arrive first. Movement may create the clarity you are waiting for. Ask yourself, what do I actually know? What am I assuming? What am I afraid might happen? Keep those answers separate. Your mind can create convincing arguments for staying exactly where you are, especially after a period of Mercury retrograde when revision and reconsideration were genuinely useful. But review has a purpose. Eventually, you use what you learned. Mercury turning direct is not permission to rush. It is permission to stop treating every unresolved question as a stop sign. The Eight of Swords asks for one honest movement toward freedom. Not 10. 1. Areas of life. Love. In love, this card can point toward words that have been withheld. If you are partnered, you may have been replaying a conversation internally rather than having it directly. Perhaps you are trying to predict the other person's response before giving them the opportunity to respond. Be careful with that. Anticipating someone's answer is not the same as hearing it. Mercury turning direct supports clearer communication, but choose curiosity over accusation. If you are single, the Eight of Swords can describe hesitation created by previous experience. You may want connection while simultaneously creating reasons not to risk it. You do not need to ignore red flags. But make sure you are responding to the person in front of you rather than someone from the past. Work. At work, analysis paralysis is the main thing to watch. You may have several possible directions, too much information, or a decision you have delayed because none of the options feels perfect. The card asks you to identify the next reversible step. Not every decision is permanent. Send the email. Ask the question. Test the idea. Request the information. Create the first version. Mercury direct can restart projects or conversations that stalled recently. When something returns, do not automatically approach it with the same assumptions you had before the delay. The pause may have given you useful information. Money. Financially, uncertainty may feel larger than the numbers themselves. Look at facts. If you are worried about money, write down what is actually coming in, what is leaving, and what requires attention now. Avoid vague financial anxiety. Specific numbers give the mind something concrete to work with. There may also be a question around what your skills are worth. Do not let discomfort around asking, charging, negotiating, or discussing money automatically decide for you. Health and energy. The Eight of Swords often describes mental exhaustion more than physical inability. If your mind has been running continuously, your body may be carrying the consequences. Reduce unnecessary input. You do not need another opinion on every decision. You may not need another video, article, message, or search. Sometimes the nervous system needs fewer possibilities. Give yourself periods where nothing needs to be solved. Rest is not wasted thinking time. Your week day by day. Wednesday, July 22nd. The sun enters Leo and your voice begins getting louder. Notice where you have edited yourself unnecessarily. Today favors writing, brainstorming, learning, conversation, and reconnecting with curiosity. Say one thing more clearly than you normally would. Thursday, July 23rd. Mercury stations direct. This is an important turning point for you. A delayed answer may arrive, a conversation may reopen, or your own thinking may begin to untangle. Do not demand instant certainty. Instead ask, what can I see today that I could not see before? That is enough. Friday, July 24th. A conversation may become easier. Use this day to clarify rather than convince. If there is something you need from another person, say it plainly. If you need more information, ask for it. Do not build an entire conclusion around something nobody has actually said. Saturday, July 25th. Your intuition may be stronger than your logic today, but the two do not have to compete. Give yourself some quiet. A solution may emerge when you stop interrogating the problem. Pay attention to the thought that returns gently rather than the fear that repeats loudly. Sunday, July 26th. Saturn stations retrograde. Review your longer-term direction. Are you still pursuing a goal because you want it? Or because you announced it? Are you still part of a group, plan, or expectation that reflects who you are becoming? You are allowed to revise the future. Monday, July 27th. The atmosphere intensifies. A power dynamic, hidden motive, unexpected change, or sudden realization may alter your understanding of a situation. Do not react to the first interpretation your mind produces. Observe. Something that initially feels disruptive may reveal the opening you could not see before. Tuesday, July 28th. Choose. Not necessarily the final answer. Choose the next movement. The Eight of Swords loses power the moment you discover that movement is possible. End the week by doing one thing that proves to your mind that you are not trapped. Journal prompts. First, what situation have I been describing as impossible when it may actually be uncertain, uncomfortable, or unfamiliar? Second, which part of my current fear is based on facts, and which part is based on prediction? Third, if I did not need to know the entire outcome, what would my next step be? Weekly guidance. Your assignment is called the 3-column reality check. Take one situation that has been occupying too much mental space. Draw 3 columns. Label the first. Fact. Label the second. Assumption. Label the third. Action. Under fact, write only what you can verify. No predictions. No interpretations. No imagined conversations. Under assumption, write everything you believe might happen, everything you think another person means, and every outcome you have been rehearsing. Then look at the difference. Finally, under action, write 3 things you can actually do. Ask. Wait. Call. Research. Decline. Apply. Leave. Negotiate. Rest. Begin. Then choose one. This exercise is not about pretending that every problem exists only in your head. Some obstacles are real. The purpose is to stop giving imagined obstacles the same authority as real ones. The 8 of Swords becomes less frightening when the blindfold comes off. You may still have decisions to make. But now you can see where you are standing. Closing. Gemini, this week is not asking you to think harder. You have already done plenty of thinking. It is asking you to see more accurately. The sun entering Leo returns fire to your voice. Mercury turning direct begins clearing the mental traffic around your ruling planet. Saturn turning retrograde asks whether the future you are working towards still deserves your commitment. And the 8 of Swords asks one final question. What becomes possible when you stop treating fear as information? You do not need complete certainty to move. You do not need every person to understand your choice. You do not need to predict every consequence before taking the first step. Take off the blindfold one assumption at a time. Look at what is actually there. Find the opening. Then move toward it. Your affirmation for this week is: my mind is a tool for clarity, not a cage for fear. I trust what I know, question what I assume, and give myself permission to move before every answer arrives. Carry that with you through July 28th. Subscribe so your next weekly reading is waiting for you. Trust the timing. The stars have spoken.